All right. Thank you, Joseph, and thank you everyone for coming to this presentation. I really liked how Joseph said, relax. This is about helping others cope with anxiety. So let's learn how to relax today as well. I don't see all of you, so I cannot really see your images, but if you can help me understand who is in the audience today. Do we have therapists? Do we have teachers? Who is participating today? If you can actually speak, because I don't see all of your images, that will be helping me to know how to quite target this presentation.
School counselor.
Excellent. We need you to be in here.
Mental health therapist.
Wonderful. Okay. All right. Okay. If we have some school counselors and therapists, that's wonderful. This presentation actually is going to help both of those professions, and we'll give you some ideas about how to help those kids at the school, at home, and in your offices. And again, if you can help me understand also, how many of you are seeing wherever you are, at school, at home? Another time, actually, we had some parents who joined us in a similar presentation. So that was quite helpful. But if you can help me understand also, do you see currently, are you seeing or are you helping any kids, any teenagers, any younger child who is struggling with anxiety? I see some heads being nodded. Okay, wonderful. Well, my hope is that you're going to get at least one or two coping skills that you can say, this helps me, or this helps this child who I'm working with. We're going over several coping skills. These are actually some of my favorites that I have used with kiddos who are struggling with anxiety. And I found them to be very effective. So my hope is that you are also going to take something from this presentation. We've got only 1 hour, and in 1 hour, we won't be able to go through all of these notes that I have in this presentation, but no worries, Joseph will send you the presentation so you can actually take it at your own free time and you can read it. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or Joseph an email so we can communicate with you. Another thing is that if you guys have, today I'm teaching, but I'm sure that all of you have great ideas, things that have worked very well with the kiddos that you are helping with. So if any of you has any ideas that we can all benefit from, that we can all learn from, feel free to add to this presentation. We can get better together. We can learn more from each other. So even though I'm presenting, feel free, you guys, to include some of your comments or some of your interventions that have been helpful for you. And if you have questions in the middle of the presentation, feel free to ask as well. All right. Can you see my screen? Do you see the title? Do you see the title page or one of my slides?
We see what is anxiety right now.
Okay. So we need to go to the next one. I'm not quite sure why my computer is not. Okay. Aha. Do you see what is anxiety? Okay, perfect. All right. I'm not going to spend much time on the definitions and those theoretical things because most of us really know what anxiety is. But what I'd like to really focus some of my attention is the difference, especially for the school counselors, the difference between the stress and that current nervousness or the anxiety. What we see with different kids, or even with adults, with ourselves, we go through a very difficult, a challenging situation. We have that stress. We might have some nervousness as well. But when that stress and nervousness becomes basically a regular thing, when those responses are considered basically long stay rather than just a short-lived responses, that is when we are going to worry about, is there any possibility that the kid that we are working with is struggling with anxiety? So we're not just having just stress in here, but we're also having anxiety. And why are we talking about anxiety? It's really increasing quite a bit these days. The number of children and adolescents who are seeking treatment for anxiety has increased quite a bit. And this particular diagnosis is also related to suicidal ideation. We've got a lot of children. I personally work at Provo Canyon Behavioral Hospital, and we see a lot of young teenagers, young children who are coming to us with increased suicidal ideation. And one of those particular factors that is influencing the suicidal ideation is that increased anxiety. I'm having some issues with my computer. Okay, all right. Hopefully I can get how to move from one slide to the other without any issues. Okay. What are some other things that as parents or teachers or therapists, school counselors, what are some things that we can keep in mind when we are seeing a kiddo with anxiety? Well, one of the main things that I'm seeing is that parents are so proud of their children. Nothing wrong with that. I've got 2 kids of my own who I want them to do well. But what we are doing as parents is that we are overscheduling them. And that overschedule or that pressure to perform is really, it's helping them to achieve their potential. What we're also doing is that we are increasing their anxiety as well. So that's something to really consider. Do we have those kids overscheduled or not? We see with social media quite a bit of impressions that are not realistic, but those kiddos are being fed daily with images that are not realistic, and they are trying to keep up with those images that their friends are putting up there. And if they don't find themselves doing as well as their friends are doing, then they are going to struggle with the activities. I'm not saying that we should limit our kiddos from media, but we probably need to monitor. One other aspect of media is with the recent news. What we are hearing in the news can also create anxiety for our little kids. So there is some concern, quite a bit of concern actually, with what are our kids surrounding themselves daily with that is influencing the anxiety. And the daily stress or the daily information that they are receiving can also increase their depression or their anxiety. Okay, I'm going to skip on the physical symptoms so we can actually go to how can we help our kids? What can we do? It's important for us to recognize that those worries or whatever fears our kiddos are going to have, they are real for them. Might not be a big deal for us, but they are real for them. So if we can really focus on what is about their fears, what kind of fears they are having, and how can we recognize those fears and really talk to our kids about what's going to be scary for you today? How can I help you today? What help do you need? How does help look like? Who else can help you at school or at home or wherever you are going to be? Recently, I had a kid with increased anxiety about how am I going to work? If I'm going to work, I know that my coworkers, teenager, I know that my coworkers are going to make fun of me because I'm messing up the orders. And the parents would not necessarily understand that that particular item could be quite anxiety provoking for her. So the parents would just minimize trying to help her and say, not a big deal, you just start the order over. But that was not really the issue. The issue was the coworkers are making fun of me because I cannot get things done right. So for her to come to therapy with a minor issue might really be invalidating her experience. For us as therapists or teachers or parents to say, yes, that is a real issue. Let's help you with how to deal with this particular situation can be more helpful for the kid rather than us as parents or teachers trying to minimize that. They don't need our minimization. They need us to understand them and teaching them the right coping skills so they can actually go through those particular situations. We've got to talk to our kids about what are their potential stressors. The more proactive we are and the more proactive we help them to be with different situations that cause stress for them, the more prepared they're going to be with their way of coping with any stressful situation, with any anxiety. If they know what causes stress, if they are going through that particular situation, they actually can identify what coping skills they can be using so the situation cannot be as stressful as they perceive. A lot of times we set, especially as parents, we set high expectations for our kids, or we set high expectations for our students because we want them to do well. And sometimes understanding they're doing their best rather than they need to perform to the level that I need them to perform. That's a difference that has been quite helpful for me and some of the parents or kids that I've worked with. A lot of times parents think that, well, if my oldest can do this, then you can do that too. Or teachers might think like, well, if my other students can perform very well, then you can perform as well. But really understanding or focusing more into, I did the very best I could. I gave 100% to this particular assignment. I think that could be a much better way of looking at the situation to reduce the kiddos' anxiety rather than focusing on, did I get an A? Was I perfect? Did I perform very well? So really be mindful of the expectations that we set for our kids. Are they realistic expectations, or are they something that are increasing the anxiety that that those kiddos are going to experience with different situations? In this particular culture that we live in, where everything is based on perform, are we giving our kiddos time to relax? Today we said just relax, right? As adults, we focus on our self-care. What about our kids? They're young and probably they can handle a lot of things, but some of them might not, and some of them might need that time to really relax so they can recharge and they are ready for the next activity or the next task that they are going to have. I have a 14-year-old who is so focused that is to the point of being too much. He's got a goal in mind. He's working with his dad on completing a computer class, and he's putting hours and hours in a day that I'm thinking, I understand the goal that you have, and I'm trying to help you with that goal, but I'm asking him, take breaks, relax a little bit. The goal is going to be there. Focus on what you can learn and make this an experience of learning rather than the end goal. I have to finish, I have to complete, I have to perform. But I can see that as a problem that a lot of our kids are focusing on. I have to perform, I have to complete, and they are not necessarily focusing on the learning experience. So that particular goal of I have to focus, I have to complete, I have to perform increases the anxiety. So one thing for us to do as parents or teachers or therapists is to really help our kids to remember they're kids. They need to relax a little bit. And they need to be with friends. So life is more than just achievement. Life is more than completing what they have to, or what they were given. So balancing our progress and our achievement with being able to relax, I think that's something that can help our kids with learning how to regulate their emotions and learning how to regulate their own anxiety. Okay, something that can help our kids, clear expectations.
What page or what slide are you on? Because the slide that I see is still increased concern, nearly 1 in 3 adolescents, ages 13 to 18.
Really?
Yeah, so have you
Yeah.
changed slides?
I have changed quite a bit.
Okay, that's what I was worried about, but I didn't want to interrupt you until you were moving.
Thank you.
No, you're good. Yeah, you're welcome.
Do you see any changes right now?
Yes, the chronic anxiety can lead to depression, substance use.
Okay, so you are, okay, I have two screens in here and I
Yeah,
thought
so
you
we're
were-
seeing the one that is not the one that you're hoping to show us.
correct. Okay. All right, let's, okay, the good thing is that you are going to get the, PowerPoint, so that's wonderful. Okay. All right. Okay, let's move on then. How can teachers or school counselors or therapists help? How many of you like to go to work and you have no idea about what your job responsibilities are? Nobody likes that. We all need to have that predictability. We need to know what we have to accomplish so we can work on those. Well, the same with our kids. Our kids need to know what are their expectations. So the more clear the teachers are when it comes to what I expect in this classroom, the more clear the therapists are about what are we expecting about the therapy sessions, and the more clear the parents are about what do we expect at home, what behavior is appropriate, what is not appropriate, what you are supposed to do at what time and when. The more clarity we have with the kiddos, the better they are going to do with learning what's coming to them so they can reduce their anxiety. Building relationship with the kids is one of the most important things, regardless of what profession, what relationship you have with them. The closer they are to you, the more connected they feel with you, the more willing they are going to be to come to you and talk to you when they are having a difficult time. So any opportunities that you can create with your children, with your student, with your clients to connect with them, the better is going to be to help them to talk to you and to learn about what stresses them out and how they can handle their stresses. A lot of times kids think that they are going to get in trouble if they come and talk to us. And if they do something that they know that it's not in their best behavior, sometimes that thought, well, if I go to my mom, or if I tell my therapist, or if my teacher hears about this, then I'm going to be in trouble. Being able to help them understand that we're here to help them go through this process and learn from it, rather than we're here to get them in trouble, that can help the kids open that channel of communication with us. The more they see us as supportive individuals, rather than she's going to get me in trouble, the more they are going to come to us, and we want them to come to us. So the more they come, the more we can help them. Okay. Best therapeutic approaches really for this time, for this particular diagnosis, CBT, DBT, and acceptance therapy. But I'd like to focus mostly on the coping skills, because these are the things that are going to help you with basically gaining some skills. Are you seeing this page?
Yes.
Does it say schedule? That's where I am.
Yep.
Okay,
Schedule
all right.
G for predictability.
Perfect, perfect. Let's talk about some of those particular coping skills. Why is it important to create a schedule for our kids, regardless of what profession you are, teachers, parents, therapists? Why does that help us create that, or why does it help the kids create that schedule?
Structure.
It creates that structures. Kids thrive on that structure. Not only the structure, but it also helps them be proactive. A lot of times in therapy, I teach the kids, even with your homework, make a schedule and put your homework when they are, and work a day ahead, because you never know what will happen the day when the homework is due. So really helping them, this as a simple thing as this coping skill is the scheduling, it really makes a big difference for our kids. They learn how to be proactive. They learn how to regulate themselves. They learn that being proactive can help them reduce their anxiety. And it really helps them teach. It really helps them teach how to be flexible as well. Because if they have a homework coming on Friday, but they can do it on a Thursday, they're going to maybe push in and out certain or later or earlier certain homework assignments that however their time availability can be, or whatever, how much work this assignment might need. But you're also teaching them how to be flexible with different situations, with different assignments. I really like the anxiety hierarchy. This has been something like a simple thing, but very, very informative for the kids and the parents. One way to work with this particular coping skill is to help the kids understand, or help the kids identify, what are your anxieties. Let's throw them everything that makes you anxious. Let's put it on a piece of paper or on the whiteboard. And then after we have identified all of those anxiety-provoking situations, let's talk about which one gives you the most anxiety and why. After we have identified which one gives you the most anxiety and why, let's think about, what can you do at that particular time? So let's say Johnny says, when I walk into a classroom that I don't know who, it's new semester, I don't know who my peers are, that's a very big situation for me. That's a very big trigger for me. It causes anxiety. Well, you can rate it, and you can start with 1 till 5 or 1 till 10. It doesn't really matter. You can do your own rating. But now we're going to identify with the child, what are 1 or 2 situations that are extremely anxiety provoking? What are some other ones that are lower, but still anxiety provoking? And you can go in order. And then you can prepare Johnny for, okay, what are some things that you can do when you are, next time when you are going to walk to that classroom and you don't know anybody else. One of the girls that I worked with was going to receive an award. And this wonderful little client I had was so anxious about walking from the table that she was going to sit with her parents to the podium for her to take the award. So we actually worked on, what is the plan? Where are you going to sit? How are you going to go through the podium? What desks are you going to go through? How are you going to pass through those desks? What are you going to say? We worked on every single step to help her reduce her anxiety. How did that help? Knowing ahead of what she was going to basically to have in these particular situations, in this particular situation, knowing ahead about, well, what can I do? What am I going to say? How am I going to walk? What path am I going to actually take? Giving her the step-by-step kind of a recipe. This is what you can do for this particular evening from your table where you're sitting to the podium. It was very helpful. She actually came back and reported her anxiety was quite lowered. But think about this. She came to therapy with, I'm so anxious because I'm receiving an award and it's just too much for me. To her to come back to say, the plan that we did step by step really lowered my anxiety. No problem. I took the award and it was fun. Quite a difference. Was she anxious? Yes, she was. But she was able to function. So we are, with those coping skills, we're not going to really, our goal is not to take away the anxiety. The anxiety will be there, but we are really helping those kids learn coping skills to reduce it and to increase their functioning. And when I talk about increasing their functioning, if every time they come to school or every day they report at the parents, I did better today, or every session in therapy they say, I did better this week than last week, we have really helped them increase their functioning. So we can, if we can also think about what are realistic expectations for this particular child that we are working with, what is he or she capable of doing? So, but with the hierarchy of the anxiety, what we do also is help them regulate themselves. If Johnny knows that walking through that classroom from the door to the desk that he sits, and he doesn't know anybody in there, if we can help him with these are some of the things that you can do, that can help Johnny regulate his own anxiety. So being proactive and helping them with these particular situations can be very helpful for them to regulate anxiety. Another side benefit from working with this anxiety hierarchy is that the kids now are going to identify not everything in my life is so anxiety provoking. There are little things that I can handle, and there are bigger things that I will need some help. So this way, if Johnny knows that, hey, performing in front of everybody is a big anxiety provoking for me, but maybe walking in a classroom full of peers that I do not know is less, then when he enters this less anxiety provoking situation, he can also make he can also distinguish that I can do this. It's not as bad as the other situation. So in a way, you're increasing their ability to cope or to regulate their own anxiety. Let's see, here is another coping skill. Remember, we talked about CBT being one of the best approaches to help the kiddos with anxiety. Increasing their ability to understand what they are thinking, what are they feeling, and because of their thoughts and feelings or emotions, how is their behavior going to be impacted, or vice versa, because they are engaging in a certain behavior, and how is their anxiety increased due to their behavior or their thoughts. So basically, there is not any particular circle where this cycle starts. It can start at thoughts, at behaviors or emotions, but being able to help our kids understand or to increase that awareness about what were you thinking, what were you feeling, and why. How can you change your behavior because of those thoughts or feelings that you had? Or you engaged in a certain behavior and you felt that way. What was the thinking? If you change the thinking, if you think differently, how is that going to impact your emotions and behaviors? So if Johnny states that, well, when I walk into the classroom and I don't know the peers, I feel awkward. I think they're all judging me, and then I feel anxious. Okay, so the thought is, I feel awkward. The emotion is, I feel anxious. What if we change the thinking there? What if instead of thinking, I am so awkward, nobody likes me, or I don't know anyone and they are going to think of me as a freak, or whatever Johnny is thinking, what if we change the thought there? Johnny, what if for today or next day when you go to the same class, you think that even though you don't know those kids, they think you're the coolest kid in the school? How is that change of thought going to change your emotion? And how is that change in thought or emotions going to change your behavior? What are you going to do now when you have a different thought in your mind? How is your behavior going to change? So increasing their awareness about what they are thinking and what they are feeling can also help them change their behavior, which can also reduce their anxiety. Any questions so far? How are we doing? Okay, I will continue then. Okay, a lot of time with anxiety, what I find that increases the anxiety is the cognitive distortions that our young people are having about themselves. A lot of time they think of them, basically a lot of times you can see that their low self-esteem influences their thinking about themselves. And because of the low self-esteem, anxiety increases. But a lot of times we also see those cognitive distortions. So if we could be able to talk to the kids about or identify what are some of the cognitive distortions that they are carrying with them, that can also help them reduce their anxiety. A lot of times when I give compliments to even if I give compliments to my kids, a lot of times they will say to me, well, yes, you have to say it because you are my mom. But this disqualifying of the positives, it's very common. I see this quite often with the kids, that even though they have great things going on for themselves, they don't necessarily seem to recognize them because anxiety is going to impair their thinking. Anxiety is going to really make them focus on things that are not going so well rather than things that are going well. One of the most common ones that I also notice with the kids is the should statements. I should be able to do this. I should be able to get an A. I should be able to help people. The list of I shoulds go on and on and on, which to me, what that list does is that it's again that performance. I have to do all of those things, or otherwise I'm not going to be so good. So that list makes them so anxious because the list of shoulds never ends. It just piles up, and they start comparing themselves with other peers, and then anxiety increases as well. I've got here some of the most common cognitive distortions that I have noticed in my practice. What have you guys noticed? Is there something that you say, oh yeah, I've seen this with the kids I've worked with? You guys are a quiet audience. Okay.
Feel free to put your answer in the chat or just unmute and go for it. Future tripping. That's what one of the responses was from Kira.
Nice. I don't see those, so that's good. I'm glad that some people are having those responses. Future tripping. Yep, I see that now. Wonderful. I should do better than my friends or my brother or my sister. Absolutely. I definitely see the should statement and also mind reading, even though that's not on the slide. Oh, absolutely. The mind reading, absolutely, with the kiddos. Yes, very good. Very good comments. Thank you, guys.
I have a thought. Yeah, I really think that I should be able to help anyone who needs help is really a big deal with some of the teens that I've worked with. And they just get sucked into negative vortexes because they're always trying to help everyone else and they're not taking care of themselves. So
absolutely. And what I'm noticing, especially recently, I mostly work with teenagers, and mostly what I'm noticing is that kiddos who are feeling suicidal are not going to their parents or to their therapist, but they're coming to friends. And those good kids who are so they are so good and they have such a good heart and they want to help, they are neglecting themselves to help these other kids who are feeling suicidal. They are giving it their best and they still don't know what to do. But basically, these peer relationships is one of the things that is causing so much anxiety amongst the teenagers. They want to help, they don't know exactly what to do, but they feel like they should be helping everyone. And when they know that their help has not really been helpful to the other person to the extent that they want it, then the anxiety increases. So good things. We've got to really be aware of those things, those items, and we need to help our kids be aware of those as well. A daily positive reflection log can be helpful, especially for the kids who like to write, who like to keep a journal, but it's helpful for them to say, today I was good at, and list, especially for kids who have a hard time finding something good about themselves. Today I handled stress well by. What does this do to the kids is that it helps them increase their functioning and increases their self-confidence. if they can understand and identify what they did well today, they can use the same skills tomorrow and the next day. So it really helps with increasing that competence in them. Some other coping skills that you might want to try with the kids, just to be aware, just to increase their awareness about the anxiety. Anytime they feel anxious, they can actually do the rubber band around their wrist, so snapping, or it can be something else. Sometimes I have younger kids have a fidget toy in their pocket, and I have the parents work with the school counselors and with the teachers to help them maybe take a break, a 5-minute break when they're feeling anxious, or maybe allow them to have a small fidget toy in their pocket, not be disrupted, but just in their pocket, so they can actually fidget with that when they are feeling anxious. Best thing to do is to really involve the child to understand what helps him or her or they, so they can actually do whatever they feel like anxiety can be reducing for them. One day at a time or one thing at a time. A lot of time the anxiety increases because of the volume of things that the kids are engaged in, and they think like they have to do everything. Actually, funny enough, today, just before this presentation, a lot of texts from different people came all at once on my phone. And it's just, I noticed that gives me anxiety, because there are so many people that I think I need to respond right now. But just the volume of the demand can make me anxious, can make me feel anxious. So to really help our kids focus on relaxing, focus on one thing at a time, that could also be helpful for them to learn how to regulate themselves and to learn how to regulate their anxiety. A lot of times, I really like these pros and cons as well. And if they can do it in a table where they can see it, what I find is that our brain works fast. And if we are just going to talk to them about certain things, they will not remember. If they write them down, if you have a whiteboard, or even if you have them write them in a notebook, they are going to be more insightful and they're going to remember more. So if you could help them write things down, would be best. But pros and cons of the situation can be very helpful, because they usually, when they are feeling anxious, they're looking only at the negative things and they don't know how to get out of that situation. But for them to understand there is help, there are people who are available, there are things that you can do to help yourself. So seeing the positives, seeing the pros of the situation can be quite helpful for them to learn how to reduce that anxiety. A big thing for me has been really increasing their ability to see their own progress, their ability to see their own resilience, their ability to see their own capability. Again, different kid has different capabilities, but even them, for them to even recognize that today, this hour, this class, I did so much better than the previous one. I think that's very important, to really help them to really give them that feedback. You know what, today I saw you be so good because I saw you do that. Or today you were stronger than yesterday because I saw you do that. So very important to have this from both sides, where the kid recognizes how they were stronger, better, smarter today. And also for us, it's thus to help them recognize, I saw you be stronger today. Sometimes they don't see the good things that they do. So getting that feedback from us, I saw you do this, that makes me very happy. That can actually be very helpful for them to say, oh, I can do certain things, I'm capable. And remember, sometimes when we work with kiddos on how to improve their situation, what they focus on is, all right, they all have to tell me about how to do things differently. So when they recognize the good things, or when we celebrate with them the good things that they do, it really helps their self-esteem. The better they feel about themselves, the better they're going to be able to reduce some of that anxiety, and especially if they can see their own capabilities. If you didn't see anything that they did well today, then you can ask you can get that information by asking them a question. What did your teacher say to me today about you doing well? So now you get them to think about, oh, what did I do well at school? So even though they don't say much, you can still get that information from them. All right. For some of you DBT fans, this could be the DBT approach can be also very, very effective with reducing anxiety. Really to be able to help them to connect the emotion and the thoughts, and really think about, or to help them think about, okay, if you were to be working on the wise mind now, what would be the best way to handle this situation? But this way, you really help them understand, am I acting on emotion now? And usually on anxiety, they're acting on emotion. So you can actually create some calmness there with the kiddo by helping them recognize the rational mind. What are the thoughts? And maybe the thought creates the anxiety, if you remember those 3 circles that we reviewed just a little bit earlier. But if they can really understand the link between the thoughts and the emotions and the behaviors, then we can help them stay a little bit calmer. Okay. This coping skill is also one of my favorite ones. The upper arrow has to be basically what are their thoughts, behaviors, attitudes in regards to the relationship, whatever, in regards to the situation. And the bottom arrow is the response of the other person. One of you talked about mind reading. This could be an excellent skill to work with that mind reading. So right now, I have both arrows be kind of the same size. They are the same length. But what if the other person's arrow, the bottom one, is much smaller? Because really the reaction of that other person to the situation is different. Well, what if my reaction, my arrow is bigger? So you kind of have to go on both sides so they can understand, maybe I made the situation much bigger and the response of the other person was much smaller. I was worried about what my mom would say about me getting a C grade in my math class. So maybe the reaction, the bottom one, would have been bigger in my head, but my mom reacted differently. So you can really help them understand you don't have to feel anxious always. You can also be a little bit more rational about those situations and think about, is really my reaction matching? We're going to see another matching coping skill in here, but is my reaction really matching, or is my worry matching the reaction of the other person? The other thing that you can do with those arrows, this actually can be one session just with the arrows. You are going to find this coping skill as one of those that can really open a lot of conversations in your session. But even with this pattern, you're going to really help them understand, okay, what did you do? How did the other person respond? So you're going to teach them really how the relationships are influenced by both people. And what did you notice? How do you want to stop this pattern? So basically, in the middle of both arrows, you have a little bit of space in there. This could be a space for the kiddos to write, I see now how I influenced the situation, and I see why I was anxious. We're considering now that the situation was really a real situation that created anxiety for the kid. Now you can work with him about, or with her, or with they, what can you do to not get the same reaction next time? What can you do to lower your anxiety? So what are some of the things that you can do differently? This could be really a nice way for you to also talk, or to train the kids to talk about, what is the situation? How did I influence? How did the other person respond? What help do I need? Who can help me? So wonderful. This is one of my favorite skill to open up some great discussions. Here is the circle of influence and the circle of control. The circle of control is things that they can control, have control over, which is little. The bigger circle is the circle that they do not have control over, but I'm more interested in the middle circle, the circle of influence. And what I do with the kids in this particular skill is to think about what are some things that you can do. What are some things that you can do to influence the situation? So I really focus on increasing their capabilities in the circle of influence. And when they increase the circle of influence, what happens is that they see that their circle of control increases and their circle of things out of control decreases. So really, it's a nice coping skill to help them increase their own capability and to really understand also who can help me increase my competency, who can help me get what I really need. So it really helps also with identifying who is a support system, identifying how to verbalize their needs, and to identify how they can ask for those particular needs. Okay. Grounding exercises can be very helpful for anxiety. You don't have to go in this order. You can do whatever you like, but usually five things to see, 4 things to hear, 3 things to touch, to smell, to taste. Leave the taste for the last one, especially with the kids. They would want to go to have more tasting things, but leave it for the last one because really the idea is to help them ground themselves rather than anything else. And sour candy work best for taste. You don't want any kind of candy. You don't want them to just eat a piece of candy. You want them to have something that is sour enough to kind of really increase some of that awareness about how my body is feeling right now. Okay. This is a fun thing, the wheel of coping skills, when you can really take just a plate. The kiddos can divide it in as many slices as you want, and they can write coping skills there. And with the little arrow, you spin the arrow, and wherever the arrow lands, the kiddos have to use that coping skill. Not really a big deal on this, but what you're going to find is that sometimes when the anxiety takes over, they cannot think straight, they cannot think fast, so they're going to probably go into that frozen state. So with this particular skill, what you are going to do is to help them be resourceful when they cannot find their resources. So you're feeling anxious, you cannot think of a coping skill, let's go to our wheel, spin it. And these are the ideally the skills that are going to go there should be skills that the child has identified, that they have worked well with. So not what you want them to do, but what has worked well for them. So you know that when they are struggling, any of those skills in here can be helpful to them. This is also another coping skill that I really like and really facilitates a lot of discussion in the session, the anxiety meter. You probably have seen this with a lot of therapists use this as the anger meter. You can use it for other things. It doesn't really matter, but you really are helping them understand where they are with their anxiety, what causes anxiety to increase, where are they right now, what do they do when they are so stressed out, when they are so anxious. You can really help them understand how do they experience anxiety and where in their body do they experience, because sometimes they are not aware. So really to increase that awareness about how do you feel anxiety? Where is it? Where do you experience it? But really to help them understand, okay, so when you are at a 7 or an 8, this is what you do. Where would you like to be? If you want to be at a 3 or a 4, that's a pretty big jump from a 7 to an 8 or to an 8. How about we go from a 7 today to a 6.5? So you don't want to create more anxiety about being at a lower level, more anxiety about their anxiety. So we've got to go slow, and if they surprise you with being able to reduce their anxiety much more than what you actually gave them an assignment from 7 to a 6.5, and they come to the next session and say, well, I was at the 3 this week. Perfect, great. What did you do? What were some of the coping skills that you used to decrease your anxiety? So now we've got We know what coping skills are helpful. We give them praise about you did it. You lowered your anxiety from a 7 to a 4. I was actually hoping for a 6.5, but you went to a 4. What can you do next time? So you're really increasing awareness, confidence, competency for their own things, and but that awareness to really be able to say, hey, even you want to go to a 3, you want to be at a 3.3 or a 4, but today you're at a 5. When can you actually start recognizing that you are getting anxious? When can you start using those coping skills? So this can also help quite a bit with prevention. Instead of us working with the kiddos when they're at a 7 or an 8, we're working with them when they are at a 5 or a 6. So really increasing awareness has been very good for them. Here is another one. How big is my reaction to the problem? You are going to really see, here's the problem. And then my reaction, usually their reaction is much bigger than the problem itself. So again, with just like the other arrows, you can think about, well, your reaction was, what do you think? Was it matching or was not matching? It's best for them to come up with the idea that it was probably not matching, it was exaggerated. What can we do next time for you to reduce that, or for you to actually match the significance of the problem rather than you overreact? So really, you are doing the supporting rather than saying to them, yeah, most likely you are overreacting. And when that idea, I'm overreacting, comes from them, it is much better for them to understand, okay, I've got to do something with that. Here is another coping skill. What could happen versus what will happen. With that mind reading, it's very helpful to use this coping skill, because they start feeling anxious and they say this will happen, when in reality, probably not. So this helps them understand how I can be, or how they can be more realistic with their worries to be able to control their anxiety. I really like this. What is my worry and what are my options? A lot of times, I don't think that our kiddos can see the options that they have. They think that as soon as they feel anxious, everything is going to go down. And they cannot think about who can help me, what can I do? So being able to walk them through about, yes, that's the situation. What options do you have? And when I talk about options, is just what could you do? Who could help you? How they can help you? So basically, really helping them to understand how they can increase their own effectiveness. There is one more that is one of my favorites. You've got some other things there, but they are easy to, you can actually read them as you get the PowerPoint. But I really like this, the radio show, the radio talk host. This is one of my favorite. I've used this with younger kids and teenagers, and it works great. This is really a way to increase their self-confidence, to increase their perceived ability, not perceived, but basically helping them understand that they are capable. I have the kiddo play the radio host. And as a therapist, or the parent who is usually present, I say to them, we're going to call Johnny and ask Johnny questions about situation that he's going through, that he is going to give us some advice. So if Johnny has anxiety about walking to a room, to a classroom with new people that he doesn't know, and he thinks that they are all going to judge him, and I say, hey, Johnny, I just started a new school. I don't know what to do. I'm going through this class. I don't know any of the peers. I don't know what to sit, or I don't know how to walk without being red in my face. Can you help me? Can you give me some advice? So you're really targeting the issues that Johnny has. It is amazing to see how what great advice they give to me. And then I have to say, can you do that as well? If you are going to give me that advice, can you do that as well? It increases their own competence. It increases their ability to see their own progress and the things that they can do. It has been really good to see that. I'm going to share one more thing because I like that, and then I'll open it for questions, Joseph. Another thing that I like is to finish their story. I'm not quite, I have it, complete their story. I have one, I can use it with families as well, but I engage the clients into tell me a story that has a beginning, middle, and an end. It should be a story that I never heard before. So it's not like a Cinderella or a Superman story, because I've heard those stories. You have to come up with this story. They tell me the story, I take notes, and then I tell them the story. And I change some of the story. I change the ending. I can change the beginning. It's really up to me to what I change, but I change it to with the thought to make the main character, who is usually the teenager or the child, be more resilient, be more capable, be stronger. Whatever their issues are, I find a way to change the stories to whatever they need. And then we talk about how is the second story different than the first story? What is something that you like in the second story? How was the main character different in the second story? How can you be more like the character? So we really talk about increasing resiliency and increasing capability. So for the sake of time, I'm going to end in here. But there are a few coping skills that you are going to get with a PowerPoint. Any comment or any questions from you guys?
So just for anyone who might have to leave, I placed the link in the chat, and I also placed the code that you'll need, which is stress 110. So go ahead, and if you run into any issues, I already had someone reach out and said that they couldn't access the evaluation. If that's the case, then please email me at joseph.turk@uhsinc.com, and I will send that to you, and we can troubleshoot and see what we can do to work around that. So the code again was stress 110. So stress 110 is in January 10th. Any questions? Let's see. I'm going to scan the chat here really quick. I'm seeing that it was a great presentation, a lot of praise here. Let's see. A great refresher. Good. Yeah, any other questions or anything that anyone wanted to bring forward at this time? Oh, also, I'm going to state again, I will be sending the slides out. So if you missed anything in the slides or you wanted to go back, you'll have access to those when I send out the certificates. And we're also going to upload this class to YouTube. If you want to check it out again, let's say maybe you were distracted, maybe had something going on at the same time and you wanted to review some of these great techniques that Vjollca has presented, you'll have a chance to do that. I'm going to upload that later this week so you can check out our YouTube channel. I'll include a link to that channel with the certificate that I send out later this week.
Joseph, could you repeat the code word? Some of them did not get it.
Yes, stress 110.
That's the course code, correct?
That's the course code. Yeah, there's a little spot on the evaluation that will ask for that. And that just kind of helps to mitigate, maybe, someone saying, hey, I attended this class, but maybe they didn't really do it. And we're just trying to do due diligence in making sure that, you get credit for being here, for being present. And that code word allows you to do that. If someone said, Nancy says this has definitely decreased her anxiety. So that's good to hear. I think a lot of these you know, a lot of these tactics can be applied, you know, even to our lives and can be modified to help others as well, not necessarily just teens, but this was a wealth of information. So again, for those who are asking, how do you get credit for today's class, go ahead and access that link to the evaluation. I'll place it here in the chat one more time. And let's see, if you run into any issues accessing it, you know, sometimes we understand, sometimes you're behind a firewall or something that won't let you access the document. If you run into that issue, please email me and I'll be happy to see what we can do to work with you. Any other questions for Vjollca before she moves on?
So I have a question.
Yes.
I was wondering, are there like certain, I mean, because there's so many great techniques. So do you meet with this? I was going to say student because that's what I do, you know, so do you meet with the individual and then just kind of like intuitively think like, okay, I think these are really the ones that are going to work for this person? Are there some you always use or?
Great question, Pamela. You know what? It's going to be a trial and error. There are a lot of skills that I say, oh, this will work so well for this kiddo. And the kid says it doesn't work for me. And that's okay, because you will have to find what works for them. One thing that I ask them is try a coping skill for a week, because usually teenagers say to me one day after, well, it didn't work. So how long did you try it? So I ask them for a week till I go to the next skill. And usually I send them home with at least 3 or 4 skills. That sometimes 3 or 4 is too much, but at least 2, so they can use one or the other. This way they are more willing to use something rather than use it once and say, it didn't work. But the consistency will be helpful, and you don't know, some things might work for some kid and some things might not.
Yeah, so Noel is asking, has there always been a YouTube where we can watch these? We implemented the YouTube channel maybe towards the end of last year, I believe it was. So it's still kind of new, but we've slowly been uploading past classes that have been recorded to that YouTube channel. So yeah, check that out and let us know what you think. Yeah, and it looks like someone else has, is it possible to have the PowerPoint information by email? Yes, I'm going to send you the PowerPoint slides via email once I send out the certificate, which I'm hoping to do that later this week. So you'll have that. I want to give everyone a chance to answer the evaluation. Some people, you know, it's problematic accessing it the very same day that they watch the class. So I like to give people a couple of days. And let's say after the end of this week, if you know, you still need more time to fill that out, shoot me an email. I'm not always watching to see which new evaluations have come in after a few days, but you know, I like to leave it open just in case someone didn't get a chance, you know, during the week that they did that. But just shoot me an email and say, hey, I finished the evaluation. Sorry, I didn't get to it until now. Please let me know if you can check that off and send me my certificate, and I'd be happy to do that. Let's see, Emily says, any best skill to use for teens who are extremely resistant?
Emily, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Emily, with some of those kids, my best advice is water over rock. I've learned this from one of my professors that stayed with me. And what that means is you're the water and they are the rock. Eventually that water is going to smooth the rock. What I've done with some resistive kids, I've said to them, we're not doing therapy. We're just going to talk. They got therapy all right, but to them, I'm just hanging out with this therapist. Sometimes I would play games with them And through that game, you can actually throw there a couple of questions for them. So basically, they think you're playing. You are doing therapy with them. You're developing the relationship. But if you can do one or two small things in that session, that's progress. You don't have to have a full session for them. Just talk because they are resistant. And all they want right now is to push you to see what are you going to do.
Yeah, and I went ahead and posted a link to the YouTube channel for anyone that's interested. But again, I'll also include that in the email that I send out with your certificate and the slides.
Well, I appreciate everyone coming today. I honestly wish we had more time, but it is what it is. I can talk about anxiety in teens for the whole day. So I hope you learned something and thank you for participating.
Thank you, Vjollca, for your time and for sharing all of these great things to try and to focus on when dealing with teens. And thank you everyone for showing up today. This has been great. If you have any other additional questions, you can reach out to me. I can forward those on to Vjollca and see if we can work through anything. Again, if you run into any issues with the evaluation, please feel free to shoot me an email. I'm happy to troubleshoot any issues that you might be experiencing. Yeah, stay tuned. Also, tell your friends if you have people that are interested in receiving CE credit or just, brushing up on skills or discovering new topics and things that would help as well. Pass these emails along. That's always appreciated. And if there's anything that we can do to improve these in any way, there is a space on the evaluation, that asks for like what kind of topics you guys are interested in. If there's something that you want to see more of, definitely let us know. All right, well, we'll be signing off here. Thanks again, everyone. And we'll be in touch. We plan to have more of these this year as well. I think they've been a great tool for everyone to utilize in keeping up with education and trying new tactics and things like that. So we have a lot of stuff that we're planning for this year, and I think just by how many people showed up to participate today, I think this is a good sign of the interest that people have in these type of things. So again, thank you, Vjollca, for your time, and thank you to everyone who participated today. These were great comments and great questions that were brought up. Again, if you're having any issue with the evaluation, being able to see that, reach out to me. I'll post my email once more here in the chat. Go ahead and send me an email and we'll see if we can try a few things. Also, don't forget to try emailing the link to your personal email, or try logging on from a different Wi-Fi connection. A lot of times that will mitigate some of the issues that you might be experiencing. So we try to have these every 2 weeks. So there won't be one next Tuesday, but we're planning to have one the following Tuesday. So hopefully, every second and fourth Tuesday, we'll be doing these, unless we, for any unforeseen reason, run into any issue. But I'll be sending out email reminders. Obviously, I have you on my list, but if I need your email because maybe you viewed on someone else's computer today or something like that, go ahead and shoot me an email. It's joseph.turk@uhsinc.com. And I'd be happy to add you to our email list.
Florian, your name got my attention. That's why I asked. Originally, where is that name from?
I'm originally from Czech Republic.
Okay, I'm from Albania, pretty close.
All right. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
You, yes. All right, then.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, guys.